I'd now like to introduce Ms. Laura Shannon from the Institute of Public Administration and editor of Local Authority Times. Presentation is on the current role of the council members. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair. I'll move this a bit closer, maybe. Can you hear me okay down the back there? It's great. I'll keep this brief. Today I'm just here to give you, I suppose, a background of the current status quo in Dublin and maybe how the role of directly elected mayor is going to impact on that system. So first things first, and in very simple terms, what is a mayor? So it derives from the French, I'll save you my pronunciation in French, meaning head of a city or town government. So depending on the country, the state, the region, the locality you're in, mayor will mean very different things depending on their own system of local governance. And you're very fortunate actually to be hearing over the course of this weekend about international models and from international mayors themselves. When many people hear the word mayor, they might have a certain vision that springs to mind. Mayor Quimby is perhaps not the best example that we should set for ourselves here, but possibly more familiar to you, unfortunately, than some of the Dublin mayors that you're going to hear from this weekend. And that might change then over the course of the years after your recommendations. So what's the status quo in Ireland? So in Ireland, the mayor is the chairperson of the local council, and they act as a ceremonial representative of the local authority. Their role is largely limited to presiding over council meetings and representing the council at external and public events, rather than an office that holds executive functions. The default title is actually Cathaoirleach, and that's what's set out in legislation. And then we also use mayor, and that's actually reserved for certain circumstances. And the Irish is used in all of these, Cathaoirleach obviously meaning chairperson in Irish. Maora is then used as the Irish alternative to mayor. And then we also have, as Jim referred to already, the Lord Mayors, and they are in Dublin City Council and Cork City Council. The Lord Mayor, sorry, did that come up there? No. The Lord Mayor in Dublin dates back to 1229, and since 1840, the members of Dublin City Council have elected the Lord Mayor from among its own members. So the position of Lord Mayor is therefore of historical and cultural significance, and it comes with additional benefits. You might be aware of the Mansion House in Dublin City Centre, where the Mayor gets to preside for their term, and they have a carriage, and there's kind of peculiar traditions, and the Lord Mayor might speak about those later on today. As I mentioned, the role of Cathaoirleach and of deputy Cathaoirleach or mayor is actually provided for under legislation. So each local authority in Ireland needs to have a Cathaoirleach. For this presentation, I'm just going to use the word mayor instead because it's perhaps more commonly used in Dublin and just what you might be familiar with. How is a mayor elected? So at the annual council meeting every year, the councillors will elect one of the serving councillors to chair the council and represent them. The mayor will generally kind of set out their own priorities then for the year and use their term to advocate for those depending on the individual and raise their profile and try and implement some of their priorities. It is possible for the council to re-elect the same person in consecutive years, but in practice that doesn't really happen. What typically happens is that a group of councillors or parties form a majority within the council, and they will decide who is going to be mayor and rotate that over the term of the council, which is 5 years. So just for example, Dublin City Council, following the last local elections, formed a ruling majority of Fianna Fáil, the Green Party and Labour, and so the role of mayor has rotated each year between one of those councillors. And there have been recommendations in the past to extend the term of office of mayor past 1 year. Plenty of recommendations in the past, but none of those have actually been implemented. So across all local authorities at present, it remains at 1 year. For a directly elected mayor, you would imagine that it will be a longer term and potentially the term of office or the electoral cycle, which is 5 years. So what is the system in Dublin at the moment? So as we know, there are 4 local authorities in Dublin, and it was very helpful to get that kind of refresher from Philip there about the system of local government. So, as I mentioned, there's a Lord Mayor of Dublin, which is currently Councillor Alison Gilliland, and she's the 353rd Lord Mayor and only the 10th woman to hold that office. In Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown, they use the title Cathaoirleach, and that is Councillor Letty McCarthy. And in Fingal, where we are today, they use the title Mayor for the last number of years. And in South Dublin, we also have the title Mayor. Now, I tried to get pictures for you here today to show their chain of office, because that's how you will recognise who the Mayor is. And on the website, there was these 3 pictures of the 3 women mayors, and I couldn't find one of Councillor Kavanagh. So this is the best one I could come across, where he's posing beside a Viking, apparently. So maybe ask him about that later. I think it was at a playground launch or something like that. I also can't help but point out that it's remarkable that there are 3 women represented on this slide, and 3 women will be speaking to you today. And it's perhaps not reflective of local government in general. There's still a long way to go in terms of gender balance of elected members. The Dublin authorities are a little bit ahead, and even in Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown, there was a 50-50 gender balance of men and women elected at the last local elections. But I think across the board, it's less than 30% of elected members are women. So what do these mayors do? As I said, their main role is to chair the plenary or full council meetings, which is when all the local authority members come together once a month and conduct the business of the council and debate items and make decisions. And the chair will have a casting vote in those meetings. They also chair the corporate policy group, which is a key committee of the local authority where a lot of the business gets done. And like any kind of chair of any meeting or board or assembly, it's very important role in ensuring the smooth running of events, kind of negotiating between parties and making sure contentious issues are resolved. They do also have a limited range of specific powers and functions, which I'll just go through briefly. So they can request information from the Chief Executive. I know you heard from the Chief Executives at your last meeting, so you will know that in practice, they report monthly to the Council anyway and give them a lot of information, but there is that provision there that the Mayor can request any information on the activities of the Council. They can call a special meeting of the Council. Again, in practice, it's more likely that a group of elected members will come together to call this, but that would be, if they don't get to discuss everything at a full council meeting and it's a particularly topical issue, that they will call a special meeting on, say, the budget or local property tax or, climate change, something that's urgently needs to be discussed. And the Mayor must also be informed of additional expenditure that would be occurred on an emergency basis, and they must be informed of potential breaches of the ethics framework or the code of conduct by the Chief Executive or Deputy Chief or elected members. And the Chief Executive must also consult with the Mayor before they appoint a Deputy Chief Executive. And the Mayor does have the ability to appoint a Deputy Chief Executive if there's none in place and the Chief Executive can't fulfil their duties. But as I said, a large part of the role is the ceremonial and representational role. So the Mayor will represent the Council when, for example, they're meeting visiting dignitaries or potential investors and so on. And they can also propose to confer a civic honour on an individual, but that does then need to be voted on by the entire Council. I have some examples to demonstrate those roles on the next slide. Just to briefly mention, a lot of people these days would actually consider the role as it stands as a full-time role. And in fact, some people might consider the role of councillor as a full-time role, depending. And to reflect those additional responsibilities, they are given other resources and allowances. At present, all of the elected members across the board in Ireland, all 949 I think it is, receive a representational payment of around 26,000 per year, and the Mayor receives an additional allowance in all councils on top of that. And in Dublin, I think it was recently reported at around 30,000 per year for all 4 mayors on top of their representational payment. So I just wanted to show you some examples of the ceremonial role of of the mayors. I think you can all spot who's on this slide. It's our chair, Jim Gavin, and he was awarded the Freedom of the City of Dublin in early 2020, I believe, Jim, was it just before the COVID pandemic? So one of the last people to receive that. They have also recently announced that 3 women are going to be bestowed that award next month. I think Kelly Harrington, Alva Smith for human rights, and Professor Mary Aiken will be bestowed that honour next month. So as I said, that is a role of the mayor to propose who will be bestowed this honour, and then the council vote on it in full. Up here we have the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, who visited Howth again in early 2020. So it'll be the mayor's job usually to meet these people and show them around the area, likewise with potential investors who might want to come and set up in the area. Just here to demonstrate the mayoral awards. This happens across the country again, and this was a recent example in Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown, where they just bestow honours to people in the community for their achievements. And at the bottom, again, we have South Dublin County Council Mayor Peter Kavanagh opening the Dodder Greenway. And also these pictures kind of show a bit of the breadth as well of what local government does as well, I think. The Dodder Greenway is a significant piece of infrastructure that was opened recently in South Dublin County Council. And you can see there he's pictured with the Minister for Transport, Eamon Ryan, and I think the Transport Infrastructure Ireland chief as well. So I said I'd keep it brief. So to sum up, there's 4 mayors in Dublin to chair the 4 local authorities. They're elected for a 1-year term. They chair the council and they represent the council. They have a very limited amount of specific powers and functions, but it is a busy role, and they do have the potential to make an impact if they wish to do so. And just to leave you, I suppose, to think about how a directly elected member will impact the status quo. I think the takeaway message is that we're not starting from a blank page, and that's across the board with all of your considerations. There are currently 4 mayors, or Cathaoirleach or Lord Mayor, in place, so we need to consider what you will do with those roles. Will they stay in place? Will they change? Will the mayor be over that, or that's up for deliberation? And also the dynamic between any directly elected mayor, the full council, the council chairs, and the executive as well, and the council management is a key consideration. Governance is really a key issue in terms of any future arrangements in Dublin. And then also just to think about the historical significance of the role of Lord Mayor and how that will be treated going forward. So I wish you all the best with your deliberations. I'm delighted to be here this morning to talk to you and answer questions in a little while. Thank you.